Hi everyone, I'm Amy Temperley.
And I am Damien Temperley.
And we are with Aging is Cool. We are a business and nonprofit that do recreational activities for older adults. And our big focus is helping people stay strong, stay smart, and stay social.
And those things are hard right now, aren't they?
Really hard right now. That's what we want to talk to you about, is how hard it is right now. As you can see, we're coming to you from our own home, and you're probably sitting in your own home. And it's been a real challenge. I mean, I've gained a few pounds.
COVID-19 pounds?
Yeah, COVID. What is it, the 19? Yeah, 19. It's about 19. Might be more than 19. But yeah, we're kind of facing the same things you are and trying to figure out every day, how do we continue to keep our brains sharp, stay active, and just not be bored and have a sense of purpose in our lives again. So we wanted to talk to you today about 4 things that we think are important, and give you some examples of some things you can do for yourself or for your loved one if you're a caregiver, to try and keep your life a little bit more active and stay healthy during this time. So
let's start with the physical side. So there's kind of 3 things under the physical heading that's probably happening to us. First of all, we're probably gaining some of these 19 pounds, COVID-19 pounds. So we're probably gaining weight, which is probably, and we're doing less, which is leading to weakening muscles, weakening kind of lower back, ankles, and things like that, and less cardio for the heart. So the heart's probably getting weaker, and all those things are connected because those things are going to be under pressure because of the extra weight we're putting on and the less work we're doing. So,
completely. Well, that weakness puts you at higher risk for falling as well, which is a really dangerous thing for people as they get older. So it's really crucial that we keep all of that up. So what are some things we can do?
So one of the things I was thinking about is I'm imagining when we all come out of this in 2-3 years time, our postures are going to be appalling. Yes, because we're going to be doing a lot more of that. And that was meant to be an impression of using a computer, not creeping around the house. So when you're using a computer, your shoulders come forward, you sit there like that. But one of the ways you can I'll just show you a couple of exercises. Rolling those shoulders back. And these exercises you can actually do 3 times a day. And as you roll your shoulders back, really feel those shoulder blades squeezing together. Yeah, and it doesn't feel normal because it's not a normal movement that you do in any everyday movement. So really squeeze those back. And another one is, you can't really see, but my arms are down by my side. But if you squeeze your shoulders forward, like you're trying to touch your shoulders together in front of you or underneath your chin, and hold that for about 3 seconds, and then do the opposite. Try and squeeze and hold your shoulders, and like you're trying to touch your shoulder blades together behind you. Can you feel that?
Mm-hmm.
And then go forward.
I'm on the computer all the time, so these feel really
And then going back,
me.
really squeeze and back. And do that maybe 12 times and hold it for like 3-4 seconds.
What about your neck? Are there some things you can do kind of for your neck? I know we're starting to get this neck right in this one. Yeah.
Yes, it's not going to look attractive on the camera, which gave me notice of doing this. So that's all to do with these muscles here and going up into the back of the neck. So one way is you bring the chin down, and then you bring the head back, and you do this whole
that's
that's where you get this double chin thing. But hopefully you're doing this by yourself. I was once driving a car, and I stopped at a traffic light. There was a woman doing this next to me in the car. So well,
at least she was.
And you're going to really feel those muscles stretch. And another good one is if you look to the side and then look down at the floor, you're going to really feel this stretch going right. You can't really see your ears behind his head, but really up behind the ear.
That feels really good, actually.
And make sure you do that slowly. And when you finish one side, don't just snap to the other side. Don't give yourself whiplash.
Really slow. That's great.
And another thing is walking. We all know walking is one of the best things. But if you don't want to walk around your house in circles like don't go insane, is just get some music on and just march on the spot. Get something with a good beat. You can do that in a chair also, and just change what you do in your feet. So do that. Do your feet further apart. Do a kick. One foot and then the other. You can kick out to the sides to work your hips. You can kick over like you're in the Rockettes. Raise your starts incorporating your heart more, because your heart now is pumping the blood to your legs and your arms when they're moving at the same time.
Well, and it doesn't have to be really structured, right? The whole point is just to move your body in some way. My mother sits a lot, watches TV, as we all do, and she's got this great new habit of anytime she's cooking something in the microwave, which is about 3 to 5 minutes, she just walks up and down the cabinet line, holding on, so she's got her balance handled. And so physically she's getting 3 to 5 minutes of exercise at least 3 times a day when she's making something to eat. So it's find ways to do that, especially right now because it's so hot outside here in the Austin area for sure. It's really, really nuts. So anything else with physical activity that might be helpful right now?
So we tend to think of the big areas, the shoulders, the legs. It's actually I recommend, I believe we're going to start seeing problems with the little areas, particularly like the ankles. The ankles are worked when we walk more, and if we're not walking more, and especially if we're gaining weight, the ankles are crucial. Anyone that's ever broken their ankles will tell you that the wave, come up onto your toes, so lift your heels up and down, calf raises, little exercises like that will have a benefit to you 6 months down the line.
Well, even just basic things, sitting in the chair and rolling your wrists and bending. I mean, I've been doing, because my hands hurt from being on the computer as well. Yeah. I've been doing a lot of these kinds of activities, and that you can do while you're watching TV. It doesn't have to be again, it doesn't have to be difficult. It's just about moving these pieces that are just sitting doing nothing right now. So the second thing that's really important right now is your brain health. You guys have all heard, if you don't use it, you lose it. It is really, really important that our brain gets stimulation, different kinds of stimulation. One of the problems right now is that we're sitting in our own homes, we're looking at the same walls every day, we're doing the same activities every day, and probably the worst thing that we're doing all day is watching the TV.
Watching the TV. So not many people know this, but your brain goes on overdrive in certain situations where it's taking in so much information. And I'm not talking about like a maths lesson or these are situations where you've gone into a new environment and there's people around you, particularly like a party or a restaurant, and those things we're not doing so much anymore. So you're walking into an area, you've got new faces all around you, you're looking at a menu, you're trying to decide, this is not just looking in your fridge now, deciding to, have a bit of toast or cereal. You're interacting with people all around you. You've got noises, different noises that you're not used to hearing. Your brain is doing all that, and it's good for our brain to do that. And that's why when you come home from a party, or you're tired, you want to have a nap. Yeah. You're like, oh, I'm exhausted. Even if you've just been sitting in the same spot at the party, you are tired. Our brain is not getting that workout anymore at all.
So we have to kind of create that for ourselves in our own homes, right? So, finding ways to try something new, which we always talk about, learning something new, trying a hobby that maybe you've never tried before, listening to different kinds of music, singing, trying new stuff can be really important. Go ahead.
People have been relishing at the moment making bread. How many people on Facebook have been making bread that probably have never, I've never made bread before, but we've both had a go. New things to focus your brain on, new activities.
Yeah, I've been making art and I've never done that in my entire life.
Yeah, I had this idea of and you can do this if you're a caregiver and you're looking after somebody, but meal times can be so the same and monotonous. And there's a comedian in England, and he starts off his podcast, every day's the same, every day's the same, every day's the same. And it really is, but just try and switch that up a little bit and have kind of themed meal times. And you kind of had no idea what I was talking about, so I had to kind of explain that before this. Themed meal times. So, they recommend couples have a date night every now and then. Get yourself a candle, but if you're a caregiver, that can be a little bit awkward. But Find someone who you're looking after. Find if they've been on a trip, if they like a particular trip. I tell you what, I'm going to use Utah as an example. We went, what was that, 4 years ago? We went to Utah. Find photos from albums, display them around. If they went to Utah, I love rocks. Display rocks around the table, conversation starters, pictures all around. This is my Zion picture. It feels like we're going through an earthquake now. Sorry, I shot just the camera. But yeah, display, have a conversational piece. Mealtimes can be really stimulating. If you've got a model of something, you know, a dinosaur, bring that in and just kind of, and you know, explain the connection. Oh, there were dinosaurs in that period and around there.
Or even having a theme. You know, some of us have been trying different foods or cooking different foods, but you could also, let's, you know, order out Italian tonight and
dress up.
Do something that's fun and different and engaging, something that's going to make you laugh as well as your loved one, and so that it's different and it's not the same, and is also going to help stimulate memory, reminiscence, which is all really, really good for your brain health. So try that one out. I thought that one was a pretty fun idea.
Yeah.
So the third thing you want to be really mindful of is that we are not as social as we used to be. And as Damien mentioned, you know, socialization and interacting with somebody. You know, if I'm interacting with Damien, I'm watching his facial expressions, I'm listening to what he's saying, I'm processing a response. That's all really good for us. It's good for our health as well as just our emotional well-being. But what's happening right now is this guy is pretty much all I talk to.
Well, it's not that bad, right?
I mean, he's all right. He's all right.
It's like an accent.
But that's true. That's true. But we've all had, you know, we've had similar conversations. And so bringing somebody else into the mix socially, and where that may not be safe in a physical distancing situation, pick up the phone, right? At least 2 or 3 times a week for you or your loved ones. Schedule a time for them to talk to somebody else or you to talk to somebody else. Doing Zoom calls. We do a Zoom call with my family every Saturday night so that we are able to interact with different people. Is it the same as getting a hug? No, it's not. It's not the same as being face-to-face. But right now we have to proactively make some choices around how we can be social and how we can engage with others, because it feels good and we need it. There's a lot of loneliness going on right now.
Absolutely. And, you know, we spent 4 years of our, work talking about how important social activity is. And now we're in this situation where we're like, wow, I told you so.
That's true.
But we can't do anything about it now. So yeah, it's horrible.
Huge told you so.
Yeah.
But so all of this, I think what one of the points is a lot of this stimulation we used to get naturally in our world before, and now we have to actually proactively choose to do these things, right? You might have just been getting some body movement from, you know, the regular things that you were doing every day. You were getting mental stimulation from the things you were doing. You were getting social, and we're not getting that right now. So we have to actually put it in our calendar and make some choices about what we're going to do each day. And the last thing that I think
this is the most important. I really do. You know, I've been kind of, let's not reveal it yet. It's kind of a mysterious. Like, what are they talking about? So, you know, there's been trends. You know, with years ago, it was all about the trends of being aware of full risk. And then, you know, at the moment it was the social, you know, keeping an eye on people's social interactions, you know, that's important. But I believe that this is going to be the next big buzzword, and there really is a reason for that. So what is the big buzzword?
Purpose.
And this is for everybody. Purpose.
Yeah, we all need a reason to be. We all need a reason to get up every day, something that gives us joy, something that makes us feel like we have value in the world, something that makes us feel like that we're contributing in some way or another, even if it's just contributing to our own happiness, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do some great big thing for the world. It could be your sense of purpose is to get up and tend to your plants every day, or do your work of art or listen to music, something that gives you joy and meaning in your life.
Let me give you an example of this. Like, how good does retirement sound to you? Sounds fantastic, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sounds really
it sounds
good.
amazing.
Yeah, right now it sounds really good.
But how many people do you know that retire and then 3 days later they go and get another job because suddenly their sense of purpose is gone or lower? So they have that within 3 days is when your brain starts going, okay, I need a reason, you know. And it's the same thing. Suddenly we're indoors, we need to be doing more. And that purpose, you can change that a little bit. The purpose could be a project, something that you're looking forward to completing, something that you're going to do a little bit every day. It can be as simple as that. But how do you like to look forward to a holiday? You know,
oh yeah, just the planning that, and something coming up.
Yeah, you know, okay, I'm going to go to Utah. I'm going to be hiking a lot. I need to exercise more. You see how that has lots of things coming away from it.
Well, do you see his energy go up? Just even talking about like having me
going outside.
Just make sure your energy levels go up. And for someone, you know, for those of you who are caring with someone with dementia who may be a little bit more advanced as well, you know, there are activities that you can encourage them to do that make them feel like they're contributing, right? Is there something small that they could do when you're preparing a meal? Maybe it's snapping the peas, or it could be helping you fold the towels. Even if you shake them out and let them refold them several times, it gives people a reason. It makes them feel like they're contributing. It's something to do. And that is important to all of us throughout our lifespan, no matter where we are. One of the other things that we've been encouraging, and my mother's been doing as well, which has been really fun to watch, is there are lots of opportunities to volunteer online as well. And there are things that you can do together. But one of the ones I really like is called More Love Letters, where you can actually send cards of support to other people who are struggling right now with all kinds of different things. And they just publish a list about once a month of 4 or 5 names, and then they gather up all the cards. And that's something you and your loved one could do, is sit down together and say, what would you like to say to this person, and how do we support them? And what a lovely gift to know that you've given somebody something positive for that day. So really, really simple. So those are the 4 important things: physical, mental, social, and purpose, having a sense of purpose. So when you're thinking about your week, sit down and go, what am I going to do in each of these areas, maybe several times this week, in order to keep myself active, engaged, happy, and productive. So thank you all very much. Interesting way to be with you, but we're glad we could welcome you into Damien's office today.
Every Zoom call always has a bookshelf in the corner. I had to move that bookshelf in here because it, you know,
to make it look
like a Zoom call.
Awesome. Well, we're so glad you guys were here with us today, and we'll talk to you again soon. Take care. Stay cool.
Stay cool.
Bye.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Cory Glasgow. I'm a social worker with Caregiver Support, and I've been doing it for a few years. I've been at the VA for 8 years, worked in a couple of different programs, the geriatric clinic. I worked in the homeless veteran supportive housing program. And I really like working with veterans. I really have liked so far, and I plan to keep liking, working with caregivers here in the Caregiver Support Program. It's kind of a unique program. Most everything at the VA is geared towards the veteran, and this is one of the few programs where really, you know, the whole thing is designed around the caregiver, who often isn't a veteran. We do have some that are veterans as well, but the majority of the people we work with, you know, are family members, loved ones of the veteran. All right, so the mission of our program, we talked about it being one of the few programs that's really geared towards caregivers, and that's what the mission is. The mission is really to do whatever we can to support the caregiver so they can continue to provide the best care possible to their loved one. It took a while for the medical community to catch on, but they finally did, and realized that the person that can promote health and well-being the most for any patient really is the people that are closest to them. And so, you know, finally, after a lot of hard work from caregivers, you know, there's started to be more recognition of that fact. And so we really see that we can keep hospital costs down, emergency room visits down. We can We can really keep the patient or the loved one, the veteran, living in the home comfortably, safe, if we give the caregiver what they need to be supported. So that's really the mission. So for VA purposes, but really this is for, like, I guess, all purposes, a caregiver that we look at is really someone who identifies as a caregiver, and they provide assistance to another person, and in order to remain in the home. And this caregiver can be a spouse, it could be a significant other, parent, a child, a brother, a sister, cousin, nephew. Really, it could be even a next door neighbor. I can think of several situations where someone that didn't really know the other person until they, moved in the neighborhood, and then next thing you know, they're like the main support system for that person. So, caregiver encompasses a lot of situations, or can. So at the VA, we have two distinct programs. The first is the comprehensive program. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about what it is currently, and then towards the end of the presentation, I'll share some changes that are going to be coming down that are going to look a little different, but that hasn't happened yet. So we'll talk about how it is now. So currently for the program of comprehensive assistance, if a person is approved for the program, the caregiver gets a monthly stipend, which is an acknowledgement of the services they provide. It does only include veterans that were seriously injured in the line of duty after September 2001. And there is it's a more rigorous type program. So the application process is pretty lengthy. There's a lot of assessments that have to be done, but with that comes more benefits. So we do home visits, we're monitoring progress. There is the stipend. You can get, the caregiver can get health insurance through CHAMP VA if they don't already have it. They're afforded mental health at no cost to them, either at a VA facility or contracted through the community. So it's definitely a more involved situation. Then we have our program of general caregiver supportive services. This one is I say more open. It doesn't have as lengthy of an application process. It doesn't include the stipend. You wouldn't get the insurance, the health insurance, although we could help try to refer you to a place. It's just not part of the program. There isn't an application, formal application that's needed. It includes all eras of veterans, so it doesn't necessarily have to be post 9/11. It could be anything from Korean War, World War II, all the way up until 9/11. And I'm gonna get into that just a little more detail on the next couple slides. So for the comprehensive program, I'm not going to go through. This is just a brief snapshot of criteria. I'm not going to get too into it, but it does have to be suffered or aggravated a serious injury in the line of duty, and that's after 9/11. And when they say injury, they really do mean injury. And so we don't consider illnesses, diseases, even if a person's service connected for it. It has to be linked to a specific event that was serious in nature while on duty. For caregiving, we're looking at specific caregiving tasks. So for a physical condition, we would be looking at activities of daily living. So they need daily assistance with bathing, dressing, grooming tasks, feeding, literal, feeding. And then for psychological, it would be safety and supervision. So, for veterans that are suffering from hallucinations or delusions or psychotic episodes, suicidality, so more higher severity things, and of course they would need to agree to receive care at the home, which just kind of means that they're not on their way to like a nursing home or another facility, but they're going to be in the home. With that, the services for the comprehensive program, like I said, they have the stipend, CHAMP VA healthcare coverage if they don't already have it. They get kind of extended respite services, and we can talk a little bit more about that. All eligible veterans have the kind of have an option if they meet the clinical criteria for respite care during the year. If you're in the comprehensive program, it would be extended. The mental health services, there's all kinds of trainings, educational opportunities, support groups, community programs. We do quarterly visits by a social worker and a nurse. We really, the relationship is more formal. So it's just more of an ongoing kind of support net that for as long as you're in the program, there's going to be these regular visits. So you know someone's going to be checking in, and you can always call us outside of that. We're always available for that. And then just real basic on the general caregiver program. So it's all eras of veteran. Really it's supposed to be activities of daily living too, but we really want people to participate in that program. So we'll look at a broader area of caregiving. So if a person is, maybe they don't need help every day, but they need help kind of on a regular basis with activities of daily living, we'll look at that. This can also encompass illnesses as well as diseases and injuries. So it's not limited to injuries. And the safety and supervision can be things like wandering or, confusion, not being able to follow directions without someone, spelling it, each step. So just kind of a broader group. They too have access to all the education, the trainings, the support groups. They get up to the 30 days of respite care. We can help them facilitate treatment with other programs. This one's more informal. There's not the home visits that are scheduled. However, we have met with general caregivers in the home if they request it. So it's really kind of an as needed. Most of the time what happens is the general caregiver will call and say they're having an issue, or they heard about something, they want more information. We've got 7 social workers and going on 5 nurses that are, ready, willing, and able to provide whatever assistance, get them connected with the right people, help mediate or negotiate, not really negotiate, that sounds like a weird word, facilitate treatment, options, or explain things. And there's just a list of some of the things there that I've mentioned. Operation Family Caregiver, the caregiver support line is really popular with our general caregivers because they essentially, the hours are more expanded than what we normally work. So in the evenings, a person would be able to call and talk to a social worker, get questions answered, support, and then it gets referred to us, and then we'll follow up again usually in a day or two and make sure every question was answered. A lot of people use the support line. We also do education calls on that each month. It's a different topic, and you call in, there's a presentation, and then you have a chance to ask questions. They go over things like self-care, the difference between enabling and helping, just a variety of topics. The support groups are pretty popular. Support groups we've typically done in person, but thanks to our friend COVID, who is not our friend, we've started doing more video connect groups, and we've had a lot of really good turnout with the video connect. One of the things that caregivers have expressed to us is that it's difficult to get away to go to a support group, and we don't provide, we don't have an option at the group to care for the patient. So the video connect has been really, and so I think what we're going to do is maybe augment our in-person to include the videos so people can come in person if they can, and if not, they can video in and still be part of the group and get that community feel. So I've talked to a couple of the other social workers that have done that, and it seems like they're pretty excited about that possibility. So we're hopeful for it. We see the Operation Family Caregiver. the Reach VA. Both of those are kind of like a coaching, where it's a kind of a program. There's, I think for both of them, it's 4 sessions. You go through kind of a set amount of topics depending on what your loved one is dealing with. And so for instance, they have a Reach program for dementia, or they have one for ALS, or one for, let's say dementia, Alzheimer's. So it's kind of geared towards, you know, the specific ailment. So those are really neat. And we have a to do the Reach VA, you have to have a provider that's been certified. And so at our facility, we actually have several that have gone through that certification. Some sites don't have any. Not to brag on Central Texas, but yeah, we have several that are certified in that. So pretty nice. And okay, so that's actually, just don't look at that. So that's kind of the current situation. This slide is going to talk about what's coming down in a few months. But before I go on to this, is there any questions about kind of what I just went over? Is there anything I could talk more in depth about, or anything specific? Nope. All right. Must be fantastic presentation so far. So this next slide, so the Mission Act. So the Mission Act was signed in 2018, I believe, and included a lot of things. With regards to caregiver support, one of the big wins from the VA caregiver support side, the caregiver side, veteran service organizations, everyone really wanted this to change. And so Mission Act did it. We're real excited. The comprehensive program is gonna expand to all era veterans. And so there's kind of 3 things that have always kind of plagued our staff, but also our families, our caregivers, the veterans. And one of them was, you know, someone needs a caregiver, they have a caregiver, they've been seriously injured or ill, they're struggling, and they would meet criteria for the comprehensive program, all the different criteria, except they're a Vietnam veteran, or except they served in the 80s. And it's just, you know, it never gets easy to say it, and it's certainly never easy to hear it. And so what's going to happen is around October, phase 1 is going to be implemented, and phase 1 is going to open up the program to veterans that meet all the other criteria, but they were injured in the line of duty prior to May 7th, 1975. So it's basically the Vietnam and prior. And then, and still include the post 9/11 as well. And then after that rollout, as of now, a couple of years after that, so looking at maybe October 2022, we're going to open it up to everyone else. And so at that point, any era veteran will, the comprehensive program could be an option. Again, there's other criteria, but that's a big part of it. And so we're real happy that Congress passed that and made this happen. And we're really looking forward to it. We've been waiting for the computer system, the new computer program that we're using to get really up and running, and it's doing well. So right now it's basically just getting it certified, finalizing everything, and then we'll be able to roll that out. And so there'll be a lot of promotional stuff. The veteran service organizations will put things out. The VA will put things out in the media. And of course, we're going to put stuff out to other providers and stuff so that they're aware when that happens fully. And, okay, so this is something that we recently started. A nurse that joined the program from another site started this, and so I just wanted to share this with you, just so y'all know some of the things we're working on here at the VA in the caregiver program. So what we're starting is this Program Council that's really going to help us reach help us reach caregivers, help us provide services that are appropriate, that caregivers want, that they need. It's going to make sure that it's going to help us to better coordinate and plan with outside agencies. Really, honestly, the VA is huge. Even in Central Texas, there's programs and providers that all the stuff that we do, there's so much turnover or whatnot that there's people here that aren't aware of the program. And so this is going to help us make sure that providers are up to date. They understand what's going on. So we're excited about this. And we have representation from Alzheimer's Association. So we're really happy with that. And we're looking forward to the council. I think it's going to do a lot of good for caregivers.
Hello everyone, my name is Jacob Neubert. I'm one of the owners here at Visiting Angels.
And I'm Jamie Moseley, the Director of Community Relations.
And we're so excited once again to be a part of this Alzheimer's Symposium. Visiting Angels has been providing care for Alzheimer's patients in Central Texas for 18 years now, and we're so honored to be a part of that care process and proud to be recognized as one of the leaders of in-home Alzheimer's care. Now this symposium looks a little bit different this year due to COVID-19, and we wish we were with you in person. But we're still thankful to have the opportunity to spotlight our services through this short video. So we hope you enjoy.
Thank you.
When I first began working at Visiting Angels, I did so really out of a foundation of taking care of my own grandmother. She had a stroke at an early age and was disabled. And my family really stepped up and began providing that care for her. And as we saw the need in other families and the community of stroke victims and cancer patients and Alzheimer's patients, we really saw that there was a whole community of people out there that needed help. At Visiting Angels, we provide home care for elderly and disabled people. What we do is we do all of the different activities of daily living that someone needs to remain independent at their home. We commonly provide things like meal preparation, assistance in bathing, we help people with hygiene assistance. We really do anything that somebody needs to help them live independently.
Every family is different. Every care recipient that we have the opportunity to provide care for has their own set of needs and their own set of circumstances. We can customize, the care options and the caregiving and the setting specifically for them.
And at Visiting Angels, we try to match all of our caregivers up with a person that they're taking care of, and we try to make sure that that relationship is one that can be fostered over time, and we try to provide continuity of care.
You have the chance to meet with prospective caregivers and talk to them beforehand and select somebody that you really feel like is going to be the best fit for your mom or dad or your spouse or your loved one. And you get to meet those people, invite them into your home, and make sure it's somebody that you feel comfortable with.
The people that we go out and take care of are the people who built our communities and built this country. And so hearing the stories of the wars that they fought in and the businesses that they've started and the families they've raised, that stuff is really special to us.
We get to share people's lives and provide them the security and the comfort to be as independent and as comfortable as possible.
Visiting Angels, America's choice in home care.
Well, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we thank you so much to Alzheimer's Texas for putting on this so important symposium and for the opportunity to share my knowledge and my passion and support of those living with and caring for those with Lewy body dementia. To introduce myself, my name is Sarah Hyde-Williams. I am an elder care consultant and dementia educator in private practice here in the Austin area. I'm founder of Senior Living Advisors of Austin. I'm a certified Alzheimer's disease and dementia care trainer, and I currently serve the Lewy Body Dementia Association as the Central Texas area lead support group facilitator and educator. This presentation has been adapted to fit our time today from a presentation written by Pamela Corsentino. She's the Director of Support Services for the Lewy Body Dementia Association. And I give this presentation quite frequently, and when presented in its entirety, is approximately 1 to 1.5 hours in length. If you would like more information about a full-length Lewy body dementia seminar in your area, please contact me for a time and location. Now, COVID has changed a few things for us, but we are hoping to offer our live presentations 3 or 4 times during the year like we have done prior to COVID, probably starting in January. So do you know Lewy? Lewy body dementia is a very complex and challenging brain disorder. It's complex because it affects many parts of the brain in ways that scientists are still trying to understand more fully. And it's challenging because its many possible symptoms make it hard to do everyday tasks that once came very easily for individuals. As researchers seek better ways to treat Lewy body dementia and to ultimately find a cure for this disease, people with Lewy body dementia and their families struggle to get an accurate diagnosis, find the best treatment, and manage at home. So during this talk today, it's meant to help people with Lewy body dementia, their families and professionals learn more about the disease, resources for coping, and many different ways of being an advocate. It explains what's known about the different types of dementia, how they are diagnosed, and more importantly, it describes how to treat and manage this difficult disease process with practical advice for both people with Lewy body dementia and their caregivers. So what is Lewy body dementia? So Lewy body dementia is a disease associated with these abnormal deposits of a protein called alpha-synuclein in the brain. These deposits, called Lewy bodies, affect chemicals in the brain whose changes in turn can lead to problems with thinking, movement, behavior, and mood. It is the most misdiagnosed form of all dementias, typically misdiagnosed as either Alzheimer's disease or Parkinson's disease. It affects well over 1 million Americans, mostly adults over the age 50. And an interesting statistic is more men oftentimes than women. It is the second most common cause of progressive neurodegenerative dementia after Alzheimer's disease. So Alzheimer's disease affects roughly 50, 60, even upwards of 80% of all dementias diagnosed. Lewy body dementia, I've seen somewhere between 5% and up to 20%. It's becoming more and more recognized and therefore more often diagnosed. So like we did say earlier, it is a progressive neurodegenerative brain disorder. It was named for Dr. Friedrich Lewy, a German neurologist in the early 1900s. An interesting fact is that in the early 1900s, approximately 1905, 1906, Dr. Alzheimer, Dr. Lewy, Dr. Pick, and Dr. Parkinson were all working on a project, a research project, to find what was eventually named Alzheimer's disease. What they were finding were these tau proteins, these tangles that were eventually diagnosed as part of Alzheimer's. But Dr. Friedrich and Dr. Lewy, Dr. Lewy and Dr. Parkinson eventually came upon this protein alpha-synuclein that caused this disease process in the brain, that depending on the difference in diagnosis based upon symptoms, whether they be movement disorder first and then the cognitive symptoms came within that 1 year time frame, was Parkinson's disease dementia. If we saw the cognitive misfunctions first, and then we saw within a rule right around that 1 year rule, the movement disorders such as tremor or rigidity in the body, then it was deemed dementia with Lewy bodies. So these Lewy bodies are made of a protein, like we said, of alpha-synuclein. In a healthy brain, alpha-synuclein plays a number of important roles in neurons or nerve cells in the brain, especially at the synapses where the brain cells communicate with each other. In Lewy body dementia, these alpha-synuclein form into clumps inside the neurons, starting in areas of the brain that control aspects of memory and movement. This process causes neurons to work less effectively and to eventually die. So the activities of certain brain chemicals are also affected. And the result is widespread damage to the specific brain regions and decline in abilities affected by these brain regions. So the specific regions in the brain that are affected, first of all, being the cerebral cortex, which controls many functions, including information processing, perception, thought, and language. The limbic cortex, which plays a major role in emotions and behavior. The hippocampal region, which is essential in forming new memories. The midbrain and basal ganglia, which are involved in movement, balance, and coordination. And the brainstem, which is greatly important in regulating sleep and maintaining alertness. So, like I said earlier, Lewy body dementia is oftentimes misdiagnosed as Alzheimer's. However, the difference between Alzheimer's and Lewy body dementia is that in Alzheimer's disease, the prominent difficulty are these difficulties in short-term memories. The brain's inability to store new information in the form of memories in that hippocampal region where the brain stores short-term memories into long-term memories. There is a gradual decline of this cognition, and the physical symptoms are more pronounced at the later stages of Alzheimer's. So with Lewy body dementia, the memory may be relatively spared at the very beginning. However, in the moderate to late stages, we do see these memory issues are more pronounced. Fluctuating cognition is a huge diagnostic criteria for Lewy body dementia. This loop of clarity or showtime per se is what we oftentimes see. It targets a different set of cognitive functions, specifically problem solving and reasoning. So reasoning is extremely difficult with these folks. These physical symptoms may be present at all stages, and other symptoms not common in Alzheimer's, such as hallucinations, most oftentimes visual, and this REM sleep disorder, and we'll get into that in just a moment. So how it might differ with Parkinson's disease is, whereas in Parkinson's disease, it always affects movement. So this midbrain and basal ganglia, this movement, balance, and coordination are always affected. It may later, but not always, develop into dementia, which we call Parkinson's disease dementia. Lewy body dementia, on the other hand, always affects cognition. It will always have one or several other Lewy body symptoms at diagnosis, which is this fluctuating cognition, hallucinations, and REM sleep disorder, and may or may not show obvious Parkinsonian symptoms in early stages. So the prognosis varies widely in the disease process, whether somewhere between 2 and 20 years. That is very much like Alzheimer's disease. However, because oftentimes the diagnosis comes so much later, we'll see in a later slide how difficult oftentimes it is for these folks to find a diagnosis, whereas general wellness, other comorbidities, and quality of clinical care always affect the prognosis. The average life expectancy for folks with Lewy body dementia is somewhere between 5 and 7 years after diagnosis. A typical Lewy body dementia diagnosis is that it oftentimes requires at least 3 physicians going through, typically a primary care physician and then a couple of other different referrals to other physicians to finally get a proper diagnosis. About half of all diagnoses take between 12 and 18 months. And quite a few of our diagnoses are actually coming from neurologists, although we do see some primary care physicians are well versed on Lewy body dementia and can spot it quite frequently, very easily, therefore give a proper diagnosis. And the majority of these folks have been misdiagnosed with something else first, like we said, typically either Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. So the autonomic nervous system, like we said, goes a little haywire. It doesn't function properly. And some of the things that we see that are connected to the autonomic nervous system is this loss of smell. That may be one of those early indicators. Difficulty regulating temperature, way too hot, way too cold, maybe fluctuating back and forth. Difficulty controlling blood pressure. So many of our folks have what's called orthostatic hypotension. They get up way too quickly from a supine position or a laying down position, from a seated position, standing up. The body cannot regulate the blood getting back to the core or to the brain of the body, and therefore we see these syncopal situations in which they black out, they faint, they fall to the ground. So lots and lots of falls. Constipation, urinary continence, drooling either one side or both sides of the mouth. Runny nose is very, very common. Dizziness, abnormal sweating. We see an awful lot of that. So these cognitive symptoms that we see, like we said, memory can be spared in the very early stages. However, with moderate or late stages, we do see that memory is quite affected. And in those early stages where memory is quite intact, what we do see is the lack of focus or attention, difficulty problem solving, analytical thinking, difficulty in planning, poor sequencing. So if you're not familiar with the term sequencing, there are 42 specific steps to brushing our teeth. And oftentimes we lose a step or we get those steps out of sequence. So that's what we're talking about. Can we hand an individual a toothbrush? They know what to do with it and what steps in which to do it with. Sequencing is also important if we are going down to the store, and we in a course of sequences, we know to make 2 rights and a left to get where we're going. Cognitive mapping is also quite difficult for these folks. We walk into a room, we forget why we're there. And if we can retrace our steps and get where we're going, or figure out that we went into the kitchen to get a glass of water, then absolutely our cognitive mapping is intact. But for these folks, they have a poor time of retracing those steps to get back to where they're going. Lots of disorganized speech in conversation. Visual tracking and attention, like we said, are impaired. Visual spatial concepts and perceptual abilities are greatly impaired. Verbal and motor initiation, timed task and executive tasks are all greatly impaired as well. You might see on some of these very quick tests that some of our physicians do, either primary care physicians or neurologists do in the office. MoCA score, the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, is one of my absolute favorites. They're asked to draw a clock, and that's one of the really big indicators. If they cannot draw that clock properly, could be an indicator of a greater cognitive issue. So like we said, these fluctuating cognition levels, these moments of clarity or showtime, we go into the doctor's office, we have a great conversation, they're able to recall things in quite great clarity, and we as care partners are going, oh my word, what just happened? But this happens quite frequently. between minutes, hours, days, sometimes weeks, these unexplained episodes of confusion, these loops we see of great clarity or periods of not being able to have that attention or focus that they typically have. These periods of zoning out or appearing in staring into space, oftentimes we see as well, and this excessive daytime sleepiness. One of the things I hear from care partners most often is that my loved one is having difficulty with insomnia, up 2 hours, down 2 hours, up 2 hours, down 2 hours. So whereas this happens at night, this also happens during the day. And so we see this 24/7, either sleepiness or insomnia that just kind of comes in waves and loops. So some of the behavioral or the psychiatric symptoms that we do see are the visual hallucinations. Not only do we see these hallucinations in visual form, other modalities such as auditory, olfactory, tactile, many different hallucinations can be present, although visual is the most common. Delusions, these false beliefs that a spouse is cheating on us or someone is stealing our money, very common. These mood changes such as depression, anxiety, apathy, REM sleep disorder is part of this as well. And then of course those cognitive fluctuations. So we talked a little bit about hallucinations previously. What we see not only in visual hallucinations are these other modalities of a sense of presence, some sensation that someone is looking over your shoulder, oftentimes either a deceased relative or a pet. We hear most often from these folks, and something pass in their peripheral vision. So either people or shadows, illusions or misperceptions of actual objects, seeing a person where there may be a coat on a hanger. Very common. And one of the things we really want to look at are very pronounced patterns in wallpaper or even carpet. We want to watch out for that because they see these images emerge, either a dark spot or a hole in the ground is what they perceive this as, or images that actually come out of those patterns. So when we are looking either at homes or secondary settings such as assisted living or memory care communities, we want to look at that very carefully. They do a very good job. However, some of our older properties still have these very pronounced patterns in their communities, and just something to look for. Some of these complex hallucinations that we see are, like I said, little people, children, animals. Some may have an auditory component. They speak to them. We want to make sure that those speech patterns that are happening from them are not psychiatric in nature, telling them to either harm self or others. So we want to explore that very carefully. They may or may not be frightening to the patient. There is a medication, we'll talk about medications in a moment, but there is a certain medication that can be helpful for hallucinations. It's called Nuplazid, and typically if these are not frightening, if they simply are either comforting or not frightening at all, your physician might suggest that we not go to this expensive medication. However, for those that have had very traumatizing events happen in their life, maybe a military stint, frontline action, sometimes they're reliving these PTSD events, and they can be quite frightening. So they can be auditory in nature, hearing a train coming down the tracks where you live nowhere near a train track. They can either be smell or taste or feel a bug run across their arm. Sometimes I hear, or sometimes they'll taste this odd sensation. Mashed potatoes don't taste like mashed potatoes. They taste like metal or something quite different and quite unpleasant. So some of the delusions or false beliefs that we sometimes see are misidentification of folks, spousal infidelity. We oftentimes have this paranoid thinking that someone is taking our money. We'll have some hoarding or some other psychiatric component to this. And also we see abandonment quite frequently. And so they'll stick to a care partner quite closely, in which it's oftentimes like a young child that doesn't want a parent out of their sight. We see this as well. Some of the common delusions that we see, one of the most typical ones that I see that I'll let you read down through this, but I will really highlight one that I see most oftentimes in this disease process with my clients is Capgras syndrome. Whereas spouses, children, the very familiar people in our life are thought to be identical or near identical imposters. Someone, your spouse is in your home and suddenly they are not your spouse. They are oftentimes frightening imposter that we believe that we may be harmed. And it's really important we as the care partner continue to reassure them, I am not here to do you harm. Sometimes walking out of the room for a few minutes and re-entering will re-trigger that acknowledgement of who you are, and sometimes it takes hours or days. So I'll let you read down through the rest of these, but Capgras syndrome is the most common that I see in my practice. Treating these psychotic episodes, hallucinations, anxiety. So there is kind of a step-by-step process that I'd like to walk you through. Is we want to rule out any other contributing physical ailments. Go down through this mind step of metabolic syndrome, infections such as a urinary tract infection. We want to rule out any nutritional deficits, and we want to rule out any drugs that could be causing what is maybe a pseudo dementia, or could be causing a greater psychosis, hallucination, anxiety. We want to review medications that may be reduced or stopped. We want to identify any environmental or social factors that could be triggering this. First, we want to look at non-pharmacological approaches to behavior management first, rather than throw a medication at it. We want to consider as our frontline pharmacological therapy an antidepressant first. That may be a very good first step rather than an antipsychotic. And we want to be very, very conservative when we're looking or having to go that one step further to look at an atypical antipsychotic medication. And also, as we talked about earlier, the sensitivities to these medications, we want to monitor for any reactions that these folks may have. So a current treatment strategy is always, our goal is to improve quality of life. We want to manage or reduce any medications or therapies that may be helpful with these symptoms. While currently no treatments are currently available to stop Lewy body dementia disease process, whereas with Alzheimer's, we see these typical medications of Aricept, Namenda. There's a new one out on the market that is a combination of those two medications together. Those are not typically helpful with Lewy body dementia, whereas we are seeing some really good success with the Exelon patch. So might be a discussion to have with your physician. So some of the challenges that we see specifically for care partners are these cognitive abilities, motor abilities, falls over and over and over again. These autonomic nervous system type dysfunctions such as blood pressure fluctuations, this orthostatic hypotension we see an awful lot, these sleep disorders, whereas not only if they're not sleeping, we're not sleeping. So we want to make sure that good self-care, we get the care that we possibly need while we get a good night's sleep to better care for our loved one. These cognitive fluctuations that make our daily life very, very challenging. We want to look at these behavioral symptoms of hallucinations, delusions that are very prevalent even in these beginning stages. And those activities of daily living, I'll briefly mention all 5 of the recognized: dressing and grooming, transfers, bathing, grooming, and eating independently. These are greatly affected by motor and autonomic symptoms. So we want to make sure that we get us the help that we need to continue to be a good partner to our loved one. So whether that means getting family or neighbor or community support, whether or not we go one step further to bringing in some really good home care service, or providing for our loved one in a secondary setting such as assisted living, or maybe even that next step of good dementia care. So for caregivers, we want to definitely become educated on this disease process. We want to make sure that we know what medications to avoid, what community resources there are, current treatments, and any behavioral changes that we may see. We want to educate not only ourselves, but to educate others, other healthcare providers that may come in contact with our loved one. Whether our loved one sees a new physician, goes to the emergency room, we want to fully embrace your new role as an advocate and an educator and a really good advocate for our loved one during those times. The National Health Organization is very, very important on not only reducing awareness, advancing the diagnosis, promoting any scientific advances. They're doing clinical trials, all to reduce the burden on Lewy body dementia families. So there are many, many supports for you. The Lewy Body Dementia Association website, here is their email address, their toll-free number. There is a peer-to-peer support line. I will say currently in the state of Texas, because our other groups in Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio have suspended their groups during COVID, here in Central Texas, I lead these support groups. We are currently the only online support group in the state of Texas. If you'd like to join that support group, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll put you on that email distribution list. Every phone call and email that comes into the national organization that indicates it's coming from here in Texas, I take those calls. So you will eventually speak with me or you can call me directly. So here is my contact information. Please feel free to either take a screenshot, jot this down, reach out to me either by my mobile phone or by my email. I do a lot of education with families, either in person or by Zoom calls. I do lead a quarterly, this presentation in a lot more detail. And I am the facilitator of all of our current online support groups. And when we get back to meeting in person, we have 4 support groups in the area: Georgetown, Central Austin, the Highland Lakes area, which is in Marble Falls, and we do have one in Kyle. Please feel free to reach out directly to Lewy Body Dementia Association. Pamela Corsentino is our Director of Support Services. Here is her direct line and her email. And then, of course, the corporate headquarters. A couple of other things I do want to mention for care partners is to consider safety at all times. These changes in thinking and movement can occur, which require attention to safety. Fill out this medication alert wallet card that you saw earlier. I can get that to you, or you can download off of the website. Consider subscribing to a medical alert service to keep your loved one safe, and address any safety issues in your home concerning areas of fall, poor lighting, stairs, cluttered walkways. And then another really important issue to talk with your physician about is driving. So also want to make sure that you're planning for your future. If you're working, consult with a legal or a financial expert about planning for disability or retirement. Really consult with a good elder care or estate planning attorney. If you don't have one, please reach out to me. I can get you connected to the ones that I work with. They can update a living will, healthcare powers of attorney, or other important documents that you have. And another thing to really explore, if you have done every single thing that you can and you are looking for a secondary setting such as assisted living or dementia care, one of the biggest factors in our practice that we do is secondary setting placement. So if you'd like to explore that option, please give me a call. My initial consultations are complimentary. I'd love to chat, give education, and provide you with some resources. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in. We have maxed out our time, and so I've got to go. But once again, a shout out to Alzheimer's Texas for providing this education, not only to you, but for asking us to step in and provide this education to you. If we can be helpful at all, please reach out to us. And thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day.